Hello everyone, we are discussing about Coleridge poetry and its beliefs. I am Rajni Meena, Assistant Professor, Government College Rawatbata. His poetry. Coleridge is one of the most important figure in English poetry. His poems directly and deeply influenced all the major poets of the age. He was known by his contemporaries as a meticulous craftsman who was more rigorous in his careful reworking of his poems than any other poet, and Sadeh and Wordsworth were dependent on his professional advice. His influence on Wordsworth is particularly important because many critics have credited Coleridge with the very idea of conversational poetry, the idea of the utilizing common everyday language to express profound poetic images and ideas for which Wordsworth became so famous may have originated almost entirely in Coleridge's mind. It is difficult to imagine Wordsworth's great poems, The Excursion or The Prelude, have ever been written without the direct influence of Coleridge's originality. As important as Coleridge was to poetry as a poet, he was equally important to poetry as a critic. His philosophy of poetry, which he developed over many years, has been deeply influential in the field of literary criticism. This influence can be seen in such critics as A.O. Lovejoy and I.A. Richards. And this is the scene of ancient mariner, and Cole is arguably best known for his longer poem, particularly The Rime of the Ancient Mariner and Kubla Khan. Even those who have never read the rhyme has come under its influence. Its words have given the English language the metaphor of an albatross around one snake, and the quotation of water, water everywhere, not nor any drop to drink, almost always rendered as but not a drop to drink. But the phrase a sadder and a wiser man, usually rendered as a sadder but wiser man. The phrase all creatures great and small may have been inspired by the rhyme he prayeth best, who loveth best all things both great and small. For the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. Kistaville is also known for its musical rhythm, language, and its Gothic tale. The conversational poem. These are the 8 conversational poems of Coleridge. The 8 of the Coleridge poems listed above are now often discussed as a group entitled conversational poems. The term itself was coined in 1928 by George Maclean Harper, who borrowed the subtitle of The Nightingale, a conversational poem, 1798, to describe the 7 other poems as well. The poems are considered by many critics to be among Coleridge's finest verses. Thus, Harold Bloom had written with the dejection, The Ancient Mariner, and Kubla Khan, Frost at Midnight, shows Coleridge at his most impressive. They are among also among his most influential poems. Literary criticism, Biographia Literaria. Coleridge Coleridge wrote influential pieces of a collection of his thoughts and opinions on literature, 1817. The work delivered by both biographical explanation of the author's life as well as his impression on literature. The collection is also contained a analysis of a broad range of philosophical principles of literature, ranging from Aristotle to Immanuel Kant and Schelling, and applied them to the poetry of peers such as William Wordsworth. Coleridge's explanation of metaphysical principles were popular topics of discourse in academic communities throughout the 19th and 20th century, and T.S. Eliot stated that he believed that Coleridge was perhaps the greatest of English critics, and in a sense, the last Eliot suggests that Coleridge displayed natural abilities far greater than his contemporaries, dissecting literature and applying philosophical principles of metaphysical metaphysics in a way that brought the subject of his criticism away from the text and into a world of logical analysis that mixed logical analysis and emotion. However, Eliot also criticizes Coleridge for allowing his emotions to play a role in the metaphysical process, believing that critics should have emotions that are not provoked by the work being studied. Coleridge and the influence of the Gothic. Coleridge wrote reviews of Annie Radcliffe and book and the Mad Monk, among others. He commented in his reviews situation, situations of torment and images of naked horror are easily conceived, and a writer in whose works they abound deserves our gratitude among almost equally with him who should drag us by way of sport through a military hospital or force us to sit at the dissecting table of a natural philosopher to trace the nice boundaries beyond which terror and sympathy are deserted by the pleasurable emotions, to reach those limits yet never to pass them. Hic lever, hic opus, and the horrible and the preternatural have usually seized on the popular taste at the rise and decline of literature. Most powerful, they can never be required except by the torpor of an awakened or the languor of an exhausted appetite. We trust, however, that society will banish what good sense should have prevented, and that buried with finds incomprehensible characters with shrieks, murders, the public will learn by the multitude of the manufacturers with this, how little expenses of thought and imagination this species of composition is manufactured. Coleridge used these elements in the poems such as Ancient Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner 1798, Christabel Kubla Khan published in 1816, but known in manuscript form before and then, and certainly influenced other poets and writers of the time. Poems like these both drew inspiration from and helped to inflame the craze for Gothic romance. Coleridge also made considerable use of Gothic elements in his commercially successful play Remorse. Mary Shelley, who knew Coleridge well, mentions the rhyme of Ancient Mariner twice directly in Frankenstein, and some of the description in the novel echo is it directly. Although William Godwin, her father, disagree with the Coleridge on some important issues, he respected his opinions, and Coleridge often visited the Godwins. Mary Shelley later recalled hiding behind the sofa and hearing his voice chanting the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Religious beliefs. Although his father was an Anglican vicar, Coleridge worked as a Unitarian preacher between 1796 and 1797. He eventually returned to the Church of England in 1814. His most noteworthy writings on religion are Lay Sermons 1817, Aids to Reflection 1825, and the Constitution of Church and State 1830. Theological legacy. Coleridge was a theologian. His writings include discussions of the status of Scripture, the doctrines of the fall, justification and sanctification, and the personality and infinity of God. A key figure in the Anglican theology of his day, his writings are still regularly referred to by contemporaries Anglican theologians F.D. Morris, F.J.A. Hort, F.W. Robertson, B.F. Westcott, John Oman, and Thomas Erskine, once called the Scottish Coleridge, were all influenced by him. Political thinker. Coleridge was a profound political thinker. While he began his life as a political radical and an enthusiast for the French Revolution, over the years Coleridge developed a more conservative view of society, somewhat in the manner of Burke. Although seen as cowardly treachery by the next generation of Romantic poets, Coleridge's later thoughts became a fruitful source of the evolving radicalism of J.S. Mill. Mill found three aspects of Coleridge's thought especially illuminating. First, there was Coleridge's insistence on what he called the idea behind an institution, its social function in later terminology, as opposed to the possible flaws in its actual implementation. Coleridge sought to understand meaning from within a social matrix, not outside it, using an imaginative reconstruction of the past or of unfamiliar system. Secondly, Coleridge explored the necessary conditions for social stability. What he termed permanence is counterbalance to progress in a polity, stressing the importance of a shared public sense of community and national education. Coleridge also usefully employed the organic metaphor of natural growth to shed light on the historical development of British history and exemplified in the common law tradition, working his way thereby towards a sociology of jurisprudence. Thank you so much for watching this video.